It's time for On Point with Julian Phillips.
Well, welcome back to the latest edition of On Point. And there's an old expression, what a difference a day makes. Wow, this week, even last night, a flurry of activity. Well, first of all, we find out that the DOJ has come out now with a possible pay for pardons or bribery for pardons scheme. And we don't know yet because a lot of information was redacted, from what we have seen. But it kind of looks like everything leads to the White House. I mean, who would bribe anybody for a pardon but the President of the United States? We'll see. Meanwhile, the New York Times has reported that perhaps Giuliani was asking the president for pardons. We've also found out, and pardons for what, by the way, we don't know. We've also heard on Fox News, Sean Hannity, the unofficial spokesperson for the White House and Trump, that he says, and he said it himself, that he feels that, President Trump should pardon himself and his family. Really? Well, you only pardon yourself if you've been found guilty of something. Very interesting. Then Attorney Bill Barr yesterday comes out with this saying, this is to the Associated Press, that, the investigations will continue. Well, I guess so, if any of the evidence comes up, but time is running out. Also, he announced within almost the same breath that the special counsel will be appointed or continue the investigation into the 2016 election, where President Trump has alleged that the Obama administration tried to undermine that election. That has not gone away. Then on top of all that, if that's not enough, Trump has reportedly said from the White House that he will not attend the inauguration, that he will not invite President-elect Joe Biden to the White House. And on top of that, that he will throw his own rally on the day of the inauguration. A mouthful, isn't it? Or maybe it's just a nightmare that we haven't woken up from. Well, here to help us dissect all this and weave our way through it, of course, is Eric Ham, who joins us once again from Washington. Eric, what in the world is going on?
We are seeing, as this segment is aptly titled, we are seeing the vestiges of Donald Trump's last stand. And I think what we're seeing is a president who is trying to foment as much chaos and confusion and sow as much discord as he possibly can on his way out the door. And we got to be clear about this. This is this trail of destruction, this trail of chaos, this trail of just anarchy that we're seeing from this president. This is who Donald Trump is. This is who Donald Trump has always been. So we're not seeing anything new. The question is, can we just get past these 50 days until we can get to inauguration?
Well, can we get past these 50 days? Can we actually get to December 14th when the Electoral College ratified, this vote? I was talking to a friend in Pennsylvania, one of my conservative friends, and he was saying, well, this is definitely going to go to the Supreme Court. And I'm saying, wait a minute. If the Electoral College, or when I should say the Electoral College ratifies this vote, there's nothing to present to the Supreme Court. I highly doubt that the Supreme Court will even take any case at this point. What are your thoughts on that?
We have been hearing that from a number of the president's supporters. In fact, Julian, I was on the air just this morning, and the presenter was asking. I was on with a panel, and the presenter was saying, "Well, now that the Attorney General has come out and said there was no widespread voter fraud." One of the panelists, a supporter of President Trump's, actually pushed back on that. So it's what we are seeing from not only the court documents, but from the arguments that President Trump's lawyers are making in court. They are not claiming, they are not even suggesting that there is malfeasance, there is fraud. However, when they get outside of court, that's all we hear. And so what they're trying to tell us is water isn't wet, the sky isn't blue, and the sun isn't orange or yellow. And our very eyes are telling us something different. And That's what we're seeing. I mean, we saw that election official in Georgia yesterday literally rail against President Trump and these two senators in Georgia that are in runoffs. So clearly, this is a president who is, I think, playing a long game. We see that with the amount of money that he's been able to raise off the back of this election. But at the same time, this makes the task of governing that much more difficult, because what Donald Trump continues to do is sow these seeds of doubt that somehow Joe Biden is illegitimate when he received more votes than any other presidential candidate in history. And oh, by the way, he happened to do it in the middle of a pandemic, the likes of which the country has not seen in a century.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help matters any when you have certain aspects of the media that are also behind this, supporting this, promoting these things. You had Lou Dobbs on Fox Business talking about Attorney General William Barr, of course, a longtime ally of the president, talking about Barr, saying that either Barr is a liar or a fool or both. I mean, you've got the Republicans that are railing against each other. I mean, they're fighting all this infighting against each other. And then, of course, one of my friends also from Pennsylvania, he sent me an article from none other than the Epoch Times. I'm sure you're familiar with them, who basically questioned the Associated Press report and saying, well, they're still investigating. So I said to my friend, well, the Epoch Times, I mean, are you serious? Is that where you're getting your information from? So you have people that are really believing this stuff based upon what they're seeing in certain conservative news outlets, and they're not letting up.
You're absolutely right. And I think we're going to continue to see this. Look, elections matter. Elections have consequences. And President Donald Trump is certainly within his right to contest the election. He is certainly within his right to use all of the tools at his disposal to ensure that the process was fair. And what we have seen over and over and over in every single state, the process worked. The process played out as it was supposed to. And now what we're seeing is the president is lighting his own house on fire, because now he's battling with his own party. He's battling against Republicans. And this could come back to have major consequences, because, again, we see a runoff in Georgia where now the president is railing against the governor, railing against the secretary of state. And you have the president's own supporters in that state now who believe that the process is rigged and therefore are saying they are going to boycott this runoff. So now you've got Kelly Loeffler and Senator Perdue, who are running to maintain their position and to ensure that Republicans maintain control of the Senate. That is now in doubt, even though Senator Perdue got more votes than his competitor, John Ossoff, because now the president is literally burning the system down. And so this is something that could have huge ramifications for the party going forward, and also in its long-term and short-term prospects.
Not only that, though, Eric, too, as you know, it's been well publicized, and one of the election officials down there had a very emotional press conference yesterday talking about all the death threats that are coming against the canvassers, the people who worked the polls, who watched all this. And he says, people could actually get killed down here. And of course, we hope that doesn't happen. But here's the deal, though, and I just want to touch on this briefly: the power of the black vote down there. Stacey Abrams has done, as you know, a credible job of getting people to register. And I'm just thinking this time around, as they say in the good book, I think in 2 Kings 6, the prophet Elisha says, there are more of us than there are of them. And I think that if they're able to mobilize the black vote down there, that it could be lights out for the Republicans with this runoff on January 5th. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because we saw Joe Biden actually win the presidential election. He won in Georgia, but yet the Democrats didn't do as well in Georgia. So it suggests that there are voters who want to see divided government. However, when we look at just the raw numbers in the state of Georgia, at least when it comes to Republicans and who they may be able to bring onto the voter rolls, it seems as though they've already reached their zenith in terms of where they are. Like they've already maxed out. Whereas we're told that there are potentially 750,000 voters or potential voters who are not registered, who have until December 7th to get registered. And many believe that these would be Democratic voters because they're largely younger people and African-American people. So there's still more room for Georgia to grow. And the question, of course, will become, can they actually, can Stacey Abrams, can Raphael Warnock, can John Ossoff, can they get these people out to register, and then can they get them to vote? And I think what we're going to see is a replay of what we saw in the presidential election, in that people are going to be voting and using mail-in, drop-off, early voting, and that could be the difference in this race. Something, again, President Donald Trump has continued to rail against these very systems at work, these very systems that uphold democracy. And I think that could be the difference in this race. In fact, we're told that was the difference for President Donald Trump in the state of Georgia. He got 24,000 more votes in the primary than he did in the general election. And many believe it's because the president was railing against voting. And so therefore, his supporters didn't come out like they did in the primary because of the president's constant attack on the voter rolls.
We're going to keep our eyes on this, but I really shouldn't do this. This is kind of self-promotion, but I think we need to pat ourselves on the back, especially you, Eric. We talked about all this money that Trump is raising, and saying that, well, he really knows he can't win, but he's using this money perhaps to stage, his defense for, all these potential lawsuits that will come against him once he leaves 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And lo and behold, I heard this theory that we've already discussed like weeks ago. I think it was on MSNBC. So I'm patting myself and you on the back, especially you, for this.
Thank you.
Coming out with information ahead of everybody else. But I just want to, before we leave, and we understand and know that, every day now, we could do On Point every day because something happens like minute by minute right now, But we have never really witnessed in modern history in this country anything quite like this when it's coming to an election. There has always been a peaceful transfer of power. There has always been a concession. And even in 2000, where it took, 37 days, we understand and know that, that race was extremely tight, down to 500 plus votes and hanging chads in Florida. But here we have an election that is pretty much cut and dry. But yet and still, there are folks that don't want to believe this, despite the evidence, as what you said, where there is water, there is no water, where there's a blue sky, it's green, yellow, purple. Eric, what is going on here, in your estimation? What's really behind all this?
I think this is a president, and now our sources are telling us that this is a president who is looking at potential pardons of himself, his children, his son-in-law. We do know that the president is staring down an enormous mountain of debt that he will have to repay in the next couple of years. As you already mentioned, the lawsuits, the criminal investigations, both in Manhattan and at the state level in New York. This is a president who, for the first time in modern history, is staring at a very bleak and a very dark post-presidency. You look at Jimmy Carter and all the work that he did with the Carter Center. You look at Bill Clinton with the Clinton Global Initiative. Barack Obama has launched the Obama Foundation. These are presidents who have gone on to have very successful post-presidencies. And this is a president in Donald Trump who has only served one term, has been impeached, and who is staring at just a phalanx of potential problems and legal issues that could bankrupt him politically and more importantly, financially. And so the president is using these lawsuits not only as a way to slap back at a nation that rejected him, a nation that fired him, but also as a means to ensure that he has a lifestyle when he leaves office.
And look, we understand that. But the thing I'm getting at, though, Eric, is despite all of the evidence to the contrary, there are still millions of people that believe Donald Trump. Is it his charismatic personality? Is it his demagoguery? Is it his fascist attributes that, like with Hitler and Mussolini and Sukarno and all these other presidents and dictators or whatever before, have been able to do? Is it his magnetism that has basically hypnotized folk that you would think ordinarily wouldn't go for anything like this? I guess that's the thing that I'm scratching my head about.
You know, it's interesting that people try to figure out what is the thing, what is the it factor that allows people to get behind someone like a Donald Trump. Look, we saw people follow Charles Manson. We saw people drink the Kool-Aid of Jim Jones. There have always been people in this country that are susceptible to the most base, the most vile, and the most reprehensible part of our country's DNA. Donald Trump was just willing and shamelessly willing to scratch that, to unearth that, to uncover that. And so as a result of that, he has been able to cultivate a very loyal following. And that is something that I think has always kept America from reaching its place as that shining beacon on the hill. It's why the nation is still much perceived as a work in progress, because it's these tremendous challenges that, as a nation, that we are always fighting against. And I think this moment in time is no different than any other moment in time where we saw the nation staring at the precipice of its own and very survival and existence. The Civil War, the 60s. We're in that moment. We're in that time right now where, once again, we are being called upon to look into the abyss and decide who we are and where we want to go.
Interesting. Look, great commentary, Eric. I'm with you on this. And obviously, there's a lot more to talk about as the days tick by. Actually, as the hours and minutes, we could do an on point probably, every day. But we have a week, and we will hopefully come back next week with some new information. And maybe we can actually breathe a collective sigh of relief, perhaps, once more of this episode, this saga unfolds. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
You bet. Thank
I want to make a point for this show. It's quite clear that my feelings about Donald Trump don't coincide with those who love him the most. And you might want to say that this is a left-leaning show. It actually is not. I want to say that I have and still have advised both parties. I have voted on both sides. And I take the issues as they come in terms of what I believe are facts. And as a host and an analyst, I work very hard to uncover them. You don't have to agree with them. But the point of it is, I try very, very hard to uncover what I believe is the truth as a journalist and also as a minister. So let's see how all this unfolds. But we will try our very best to present what we believe are the facts. And as we go forward and we invite other guests in, as we have before, had a leading conservative Black representative on here talk about the issues. I also want to leave you with this too, as we deal with what's going on in this country and where we've come. December 1st, that was yesterday, marked the 65th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott. We know that story all too well with Rosa Parks, who sparked and perhaps the civil rights movement with that one act of defying segregation and bringing in an unknown preacher at the time, Martin Luther King, to help lead that, which led to 381 days of resistance and which caused the desegregation of buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Let's not forget where we came from. Let's understand that the fight for equality and justice in this country, when it deals with issues of race, when it deals with issues of voting and all sorts of things that are unequal, that we are still fighting for a more perfect union, which our country is not. I still say we have the greatest country in the world, but it's not a perfect place, far from it. But there's a lot to fight for. That's what we live for. That's what we hope for. And that's the purpose of On Point. Stay with us as we continue to explore these issues. Agree with us, disagree with us, laugh with us, cry with us. But just know that we are trying our very best to give you the best information that we know. And with that, we'll see you next week.